What's up, YouTube? Today we are going to take a look at a book. Channel's first book review. If you're here from elsewhere and this is the first video of mine you're watching, welcome. This channel is not usually about books, but I'm going to start reviewing books that I like. So this guy, Mr. Robert B., is kind of heralded as the new David Foster Wallace. And I would caution the following. That isn't entirely, it's not entirely a good thing. There's huge problems with David Foster Wallace's work. I get that, like, the hype, like there's a hype machine and it's real and it works, and sometimes it will really push certain authors. I think a good example, but one slightly before my time, was Dennis Johnson's Jesus Son, although I love that book. I just don't know if this really is the, like, opulent masterpiece, like this gemstone set amongst opulent gemstones set on pure gold and then put on a king's head. I don't know if it's that. I do think that it is for sure an unfinished manuscript. This is not finished. Initially, Robert B. wanted to, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and it doesn't really matter to me. I'm talking about the book. I lost my train of thought. There's a lot going on in the book, though. And some of it works, some of it does not. So if we're going to start out with this book, because I just got this, I haven't read this yet. So this is a character in this book. Okay, stay with me. And this guy is a journalist in Mexico. So far, only 4 of his works are translated to English. So that's what we got going on. And I'll read the back of this. In Ciudad Juarez, a territory, I can't say any of these words, or names, a territorial power normalized barbarism. This anomalous ecology mutated into a femicide machine, an apparatus that didn't just create the conditions for the murders of dozens of women and little girls, but developed the institutions that guaranteed impunity for these crimes and even legalized them. A lawless city sponsored by a state in crisis. The facts speak for themselves. And this man is like a lauded and celebrated individual. And he is a journalist in this book as well, where he appears to kind of look into the fictional city in this book of Santa Teresa, which is actually the one that I just butchered, the real city. All right. The part about the critics. So, the book is broken into 5 pieces, and some of these pieces are important. Other pieces are just entirely not important at all. And that's kind of unfortunate, because kind of like with David Foster Wallace, we end up touching on what seems like myriad characters, but getting to know very, very, very few. And then the few that we do get to know are just so narrowly confined to what the author is allowing to happen in the story. Which doesn't, if you read this, what I just said will make sense. The part about the critics, you got like a couple knuckleheads. It's like a couple guys and a girl, and they're like running around the world. They're critics, they're academics, and thusly mostly useless and totally neurotic. The girl is banging one of the guys, then she's banging another one of the guys. She's all over the place. And anyway, they end up getting to Mexico and looking for Archambaldi, who is someone who you get to know in the later chapters, and I'm going to come to that. Archambaldi is also a real person. He was a real pen name, if I'm remembering correctly. I forget the gentleman's actual name, and they don't use his actual name in the book. They just use, I think, the pen name. So the part about the critics, it's like, it's kind of interesting, but I think it exists to contrast with the part about the crimes, because you get to see how in this one part of the world, there, you know, women are able to move freely. They sleep with whoever they want. You know how it is. They're just doing their thing. And the one in the book is just like totally crazy. So, but you work your way through it, and there's a lot like, you know, of sex, and there's a little bit of drama. And it's like, and honestly, cherish these moments. Cherish these moments, because the rest of the book is like a hard kick to the teeth. And that's rough. I don't know if any people have been kicked in the mouth. I have. That's rough. So we're going to keep going, but this is basically for funsies. If you sit down and you're like, I don't want to read the first 161 pages, you will be totally fine. The writing is good, though. He is a talented author. It's just that this book is like, okay. I was going to give a bad example that would be culturally insensitive. This book just isn't there yet. It's not done. I'll just say that. The part about Emil Fitino, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm going to be real with you. I only kind of remember this part of the book. And I think that it's where somebody hangs a math book from a clothesline, which is one of the many subplots and threads throughout the work that are created and then never tied together or to anything. That there are moors that just exist in the ocean with no mooring lines. There's no ship attached. I was actually going to, just then when I was going to be culturally sensitive, I was going to use a ship example, so maybe that's why I did that there. But it is basically irrelevant. I don't know why that's in the, you know, he wanted these to be 5 books, but you could jump straight. Okay, then we got the part about fate. I don't really remember what that was about. I'd have to go back and look. It doesn't matter. So the part of the book that matters is number 4 and then some of number 5. So I've skipped over these. I'm not even really going to talk about them. That's not true, because I'm going to flip through the book after giving this overview, and we're going to look at actual like examples of the prose. If I don't get bored and everything goes well, we'll see, guys, you and gals. We'll see. So then we skip that. So we got the first 3. Don't worry about that. When we go to number 4, which is the largest part of the book, from 351 to 675. Do you know what I mean? To 675. Dude, are you kidding me that this is so big? And it's a total pipe dream that he would ever think that this would be published as a standalone book. And I know that listen, I actually do have a book out. I'm a widely published author. I just don't mix that part of me with my channel because I don't want to. And it's my thing. It's not, you know, so that's what I'm going to do. But when I say this, I have a little bit of understanding. And so in part 4, the crimes are women being brutally raped and murdered. Again and 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 again. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And we're going to start flipping through. And it's not just the women. There's also some pretty raunchy prison rape. And it's gross. And there's a little bit of homophobia, which isn't really something I trip about. Wait, was I in the... Just because I'm more concerned about the book, not because it's okay with me. But there was part of it where he was using the F slur for homosexuals in the beginning. And he was, in parentheses, he was like pseudo-apologizing. It was just funny. If you read the book, these are the little nuggets that you'll run into. So the killing starts in 93 and lasts a great while. And it's not really, you're not really realizing that what is happening, that you're being like punished, basically. Oh, and the cops are raping people. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's really a rape-a-palooza. If these characters were rape machine guns, no, wait. If these characters' dicks were machine guns, they would just shoot rape bullets. I think that's what I was trying to say. Anyway, and it just goes on. It's just like a ton of it. And some of it's pretty graphic. Oh, and then, yeah, but they also try to thread it into like, oh, it's the U.S. It's like the U.S. And they're like, no, it's not. This is way worse. And I would also think that I didn't write this book, so if you see something real terrible in the print, I didn't write that. But you shouldn't be that mad. But I mean, some of what is in this book is maybe not super duper. Like, this is one of the characters appropriate for everybody. This will probably get age restricted, but I'm going to try to run it. This is one of the characters you get to know. He's a detective and he's sleeping with the DA, but she's never going to let it turn into anything. And it's like one of the few relationships that you can see play out over the course of pages. And it just never goes anywhere, like many things in this book. And I honestly, there's this attitude when examining this from academics and like the literary people. And I'm published in very many literary journals, some of them very prestigious. It's, you know, it's okay. You know, it's ultimately a book is whatever a reader allows, right? And this was written well, so it flew. But it's not really so great to have so many, and then there was a seer, so many loose ends and unfinished things. This lady showed up for a while, disappeared. She had a lot of potential. She can see the killings and like, you know what I mean? But then it just went nowhere. She's on TV, nowhere. I just don't know. I don't like that. I don't like, and the people that do like that. So David Foster Wallace, obviously he wrote, what is that one? Infinite Jest. And everybody thinks it's so clever. I am not a huge fan of that book. It's written to be kind of like flipping through television. So, you know, you're getting short bits of all these different channels, basically. And people really thought like, oh man, that's experimental, it's neat. And it's like, okay, yeah. But this story, although well written, it's not really like that compelling. Oh yeah, for a minute, like, there were all of the cases, like this would be a case. A second dead woman turned up next to a trash can. She had been raped and strangled. Shortly afterwards, she was identified as Olga Paredes Pochita, 25, salesgirl at a clothing store on Avenda Real, near the center of the city, single, 5'3", resident of da-da-da-da-da. And then over here, it's like, you know, it'll go over, it's like a little case file summary, like forensic. For a minute, all the girls were getting their bodies dumped, either like dumped in a mass grave outside of the city or donated to medical. It's just like, it's staggering. It is staggering. Like this section is such a ridiculous, and then the cops for a minute are like, here are all the ways to rape. It's just nuts, man. This is a fucking bonkers ass book. And it's not necessarily like, I can see, you know, this is a very important piece of literature. It's, you know, about basically how women are in some portions of Mexico are basically just like lambs to the slaughter, and then no one really cares. So, and so that's what he's playing off of, and he's obviously Spanish speaking. He's probably pretty familiar with what's going on down there. I'm just kind of hearing about this now. I'm just now, I guess I'm not as well read as I thought, but that's what this is all about. And the whole Archamboldi thing, like the academics are chasing this guy around. Archamboldi, it ends up is like you hear his story, and it's neat. And I'm just gonna stay totally away from spoiling any of it, but it's just like after the rape diaries, I wasn't sure. I honestly, I literally quit reading this book at one point, and I got into the last chapter, and then like the author almost breaks the fourth wall at one point, and he's like, a good communist or a good Marxist would read this and this, and like, of course, and like, I just like snapped, and I seriously almost lit the book on fire. And it wasn't because I'm anti-communist, because I'm a Marxist. And it's like, bro, you can't even write a cohesive book. How are you going to tell me what to read? You know what I mean? Maybe if reading those things makes you think this is a finished novel, I should stay away. But I do think if you would have gone back in and wrapped everything up and put a nice bow on it, like I want and need, like 98% of people want and need, maybe then. And there's other things that show that it's not a finished manuscript. For some places, he's like, and then they went to town Y that was by town X. And then person B talked to person A. So it's like, he's just trucking along and writing a story, and he's like, town Y. Like he's like, I'll finish that later. But that's the thing about your work, is that, dude, man is not promised anything on this planet. We're not assured of time. We're not assured of a pleasant life. I happen to be very blessed to live in America, because America is the dominant superpower in the known universe. So, I mean, there's that. But it's, I feel bad that he died of some terrible disease that I don't remember or know of somehow, because I guess I skipped that part of the Wicca. But it's sad. But that doesn't mean that the book gets a pass. Like, the book, so the reason that, some people, if you're not like, and God bless you if you're not a reader and you're still here. Additional praise. So Time Magazine, Book of the Year, New York Times, all these things. And then like a couple years ago, Times was like 7th greatest book ever. So people are like just heaping praises on this work. And it's like, if this is what you guys do, I don't know. Literary critics, I don't even care what they say, but it's just crazy to me that like, it's like the book that they want to put forward to the public as this is one of the greatest. Literally, real weird rape. Oh, I'm glad that I stopped on that page. Hopefully you guys got a big old eyeful. Oh yeah, this is the prison rape. Nice. Very nice. Raped with a shiv. You think... Look at this part. Make him suck your dick, gringo, shouted one of the prisoners. It's just like, it's rough, man. It's a rough read, all right? And I'm not a shrinking violet. I'm a former Marine. I served as a machine gunner in Iraq. Like, this is just a crazy thing to be like, this is the best. This is the cream of the crop. Because, literally, this is a book that it's really like a book inside of a bunch of peripheral material. Like, this whole book is just a vehicle for chapter 4. Or is it 5? Let me look. The part about the crimes is for 351. The part about the crimes. So yeah, it's... So, I mean, look, honestly, I'm not even joking. If you were to just get the chapter of chapter 4 and read it, that is literally all you need. And I bet you could get people to think you read the whole book pretty easily, because the rest of the book, so much of it is entirely inconsequential and also weird in parts. And I get it that it's like, oh, the book is whimsical, but also so serious. And it's like, yeah, most madness is. Like, this doesn't, I don't know. Who am I to say what art is? But look, raping people with shivs, that's like, I mean, I would struggle to figure out how I would fit that into anything. But yeah, and it's really funny. I left that open to that. Feel free to go back and read that, because it's bananas. This is a bananas bonkers book. Like, it's just totally out of... It's just totally out of control. There's no part of this book that is within the realm of control. There are parts that, like... I marked out the Dr. Mangala joke. There are parts that are like, oh, maybe I could. Maybe this isn't an exercise in self-flagellation where I read hundreds of reports of women that have been, like, one of the things that comes up almost every time, vaginally and anally raped. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've read that now from this book. Like, it's crazy. So anyway, that's kind of my review. I'm not going to go much further, just because, I mean, I've gone way, way further than anybody else so far on YouTube. And it is what it is, man. This is just like... He does have good lines in terms of phrases. A lot of the text does draw you in, even the parts in chapter 4. It's, you know, and I trudged through all of it. But it's... Without chapter 4, this book would have been a book about nothing. 100%. And it makes sense now that I poked around and figured out what was going on. It makes sense that, like, if you know that it's based on this, which it is, then it becomes much more understandable. It's not like incomprehensible rape gibberish anymore. Because this and this, they both agree, in the worlds they exist in, it's many things that are like coalescing to kill these women. The book, it talks about human trafficking, prostitution. It talks about snuff films. It talks about drugs. There's obviously just an insane amount of violence. This book is like, I mean, honestly, I don't know if you guys have ever read Blood Meridian, but it's like Blood Meridian, but without the plot. And so there's no judge also. So imagine the Blood Meridian, there's no judge, there's no kid, and they're just running around murdering everybody. That is just like what's happening in this book. I don't know if what's happening in the city down there, or what was happening in the early 2000s was reported on. This got published, I think, in 2007, and then translated in 2012. I don't know if it's still going on, and I don't know if I would call it some kind of maladaptation or like of society, or like some sort of evolutionary convergence gone wrong, where like the whole society is eating itself. I'm sure I could get like a sociologist hat and put it on. I actually have a minor in sociology, and I could be like, that's just what happens. Like, I don't know what I would say. It's a totally insane thing. And obviously the cartels come into play. They don't really tarry on that very much. It's an option, basically. And there's people throwing weird sex parties. Oh, look, Goring, another famous Nazi, pops up. Hitler. Oh, Archibaldi, Karl Marx, was a Nazi. And so he served in the Nazi army. And I think that he deserted and then just got out of there. I'm not really sure. There was a lot that happened. And Archibaldi probably has killed a few women in his day. Just saying. That's not going to be a popular read of that character, but I could definitely write a paper and cite sources in the book and make it pretty convincing. Now, that's like totally secondary to everything else, because I don't really know Archibald that well. I know that he's like a freakishly big person, not the man who was Thursday big, where like the main guy is this giant floating dude, but like just if someone were very big. And it's, yeah, man, it's just a rough read. I can't recommend this to anyone, ever. And I don't really see the merit. I hate to say that. Do I regret reading it? No, I don't regret reading it. But I just don't know if a well-written story without any real cohesive plot and a ton of plot holes, and then the book is then lauded and praised and celebrated for being unfinished. I mean, it makes me think this guy is like was a literary darling in Mexico, which it sounds like he was. And he got very popular. This is back when people read. And he turned this into a book, basically. And good on him. I'm glad I know about this now. I bought all 4 works translated into English by this journalist. Or from this journalist. Yeah, I don't think he translated them. But it's, I don't know. Listen, and that's the thing too, is people are like, I read back through 2666 3 different times and I got all of it. It's like, what are you doing? Like, when you read, just a pro tip. I'm gonna give you guys some free advice. When you're trying to read in a serious manner, take notes, underline things. You should be able to, okay, he calls one character Mary Sue. A Mary Sue is a feminist character, like it's a negative thing, but it's like a contrived character where they're put into a story and they win everything and no one can beat this woman because women are the best. It's like a weird thing that can happen. Some characters are Mary Sues. This guy literally named one of them Mary Sue. I'm assuming he meant to edit that out. It's just, dude, I just don't know. And then like sometimes there's a lot of self-referential stuff in the book. I just started marking it down as meta. Like soldiers trapped in a time warp who march over and over again to the same defeat. Some of these things I feel like he's writing them about America. And for a while, the 4 of them experienced what it is like to be in purgatory. A long, helpless wait, a wait that begins and ends in neglect. A very Latin American experience, as it happened, and all too familiar, something that once you thought about it, you realized you experienced daily, minus the despair, minus the shadow of death sweeping over the neighborhood like a flock of vultures and casting its Paul, it would be Paul. Upsetting all routines, leaving everything overturned. Whoa. Yeah, then there's like, dude, I mean. Oh yeah, and then there's like some of the times the characters, it's supposed to be like a surrealist work in parts, but like here we have a cop, I think it's a cop, yes, who is like, I can tell who it is who pissed on my car because I can tell the different kinds of piss, said Ortiz. And dude, it's, and like, I just don't, are you hearing how this is just like, it's like, what? If a teacher made me, if I had to read this for a class, if I had to read the whole thing for a class, and I didn't know up front I was going to read a 900-page book that's primarily, I mean, basically like the literary version of an open-air rape dungeon, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably just not take class or I'd drop the class once I find out. I will never read this again. I'm going to flip around it and look at certain things as I'm still like processing it because it really was like, I don't want to say traumatic, like, oh, I'm traumatized, but like, man, I'm just like, whoa. And the chapter 4 ruined everything for me. The first couple of chapters weren't even that great. They had okay parts where the story would draw you in because of the writing. And there were some parts, you know, there were parts of the story overall that were good, but it's like, I don't. Without chapter 4, the rest of it is just basically a wet dog story, which means a story that doesn't go anywhere. There are some good lines. There are good. Okay. This is in chapter 4, isn't it? Yep. Meta. One of the Argentinian girls cried and said the movie they were making was disgusting and trash. Yes, this is that book. It's just, let's find more meta things. Not reading is the highest expression of atheism. Okay. Yeah, man, that's my take. Take it or leave it. These killings don't all follow the same pattern. Well, then it's going to be real hard to figure them out. As they were leaving the locker room, the inspector told him he shouldn't try to find a logical explanation for the crimes. It's fucked up. That's the only explanation, said Marquez. Meta. Yeah, that is a meta reference, isn't it? So, in Santa Teresa, the male to female killing ratio is 10-1. And everywhere else, it's 10-4. So 4 times the amount of women are murdered. I don't know if it's probably going to be the case when I go through the other book. So yeah, the reason that I am going through this and I'm making this is because, I mean, right now it's like, if you go watch the other reviews, yeah, go watch the other reviews. Let them tell you. I don't even know if they mention how like chapter 4 is basically a Raposaurus Rex. Like, it's just bananas. And the other people are just like, oh, it's so good. You're like, all right, bro. Yeah, that's so good. I am thankful to know of this other work. I guess, you know, maybe, I don't even know if I'm thankful I read 2666. It's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's okay for me to be indecisive if there's no real ending and you never figure out what's going on and it was 900 pages. So, yeah, forgive me. Anyway, that's about all she wrote for this one. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. Hope you folks have a good rest of your day. Bye now.